I do now want to switch gears a little bit to 2024. Back in April, you did endorse former President Trump for re-election. You are from a state where the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is running as well. Why Trump over DeSantis?
Well, I will tell you, I have nothing bad to say about Governor DeSantis and the way he has run the state of Florida. I think he's done a fantastic job, and I hope he continues to do a fantastic job for Florida. But I know President Trump. I understand it's hard for people to remember the Trump economy, but if you can think back to 2019, 2018, when we had GDP growth at 3.5, 4.2%, some quarters, that was phenomenal. And here's the beautiful thing about the Trump tax cuts that the Democrats all say, went to the wealthiest. It did not. It went to about 89% of the country. But here's the amazing thing about it. Because of that GDP growth, that bill was originally scored by the Congressional Budget Office with a $1.2 trillion deficit. Now, when I went home having voted for that, I had a lot of people that were upset with me until I was able to explain to them, look, the CBO scored this bill wrong because they scored, and it's always, the devil's always in the details, right? So once you realize that the way they scored that bill was with a 1.9% GDP growth, and we were hitting 3.2, 4.2. Now, there's extra revenue being brought in by all that growth. And so what is that extra growth worth? And that's the growth that I thought what we were doing with the Tax Cut Jobs Act, that's the growth that I expected. And so I went to Kevin Brady, who was chair of Ways and Means at the time, and I said, look, what can your staff tell me? Instead of if our GDP growth, instead of being the 1.9 that CBO is projecting, what if it was 2.9? How much more revenue would that bring in a year? Brittany, it was $274 million back then. 274 billion. I'm sorry. So we would have paid off that 1.2 trillion in about 4 years. And then the remaining 6 years of those projections, we would have actually been paying down the national debt. And so I know that Trump understands, and when you look at the regulatory cuts that he made, dropping all these ridiculous regulations, and they weren't creating any more new ones, or very few new ones. We had energy independence. Gas was cheap. People's paychecks were on the rise. I remember all of that. I want to get back to that, and I know President Trump can do that. And I also know that around the globe, we had much more respect than we have right now. And I think he demanded that respect. He demanded that people, particularly in NATO, that they pay their fair share. Most of them are now. And so I think he's proven that he can do the job. And I'd like to see him do that for, he will only have one term. And then I'd like to see somebody like Ron DeSantis or some others that are out there really pick up the reins and continue the conservative run.
Congressman, as you know, within the past few months, the former president has been indicted twice. There is news that he might be indicted a third time. Does this deter your support at all?
No, it really doesn't, because you're witnessing every day this dual system of justice that we have in this country. The issues that they're dealing with are documents that, quite frankly, he had control over as president. Now, maybe he shouldn't have taken them home with him, but I'm sure he didn't load those boxes either. So I'm willing to accept a little more of that than I am $17 million coming from Burisma or, you know, what is it, $3 million from China, you know, that's going into the Biden family. That I'm more concerned about those things. And as we see with these IRS whistleblowers right now, there are some serious questions about whether the Chinese have used a term called elite capture on the Biden family.
I do want to talk a little bit about Joe Biden and former President Trump. As of now, it is shaping up to be a 2020 rematch. So where do you see the future of the country going? Because it seems like I just had a conversation with a Democrat yesterday. It seems like it's stalled right now just because we are stuck in almost what appears to be a Groundhog Day, because we're back to exactly where we were when it comes to the candidates 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think the difference is now Joe Biden is not going to be able to hide in the basement during this campaign. And certainly people can see the results of the Biden administration versus the Trump administration. I mean, I can't think of a more clear difference for the American public to look at and decide, do you want the Biden economy, or would you like to go back to that Trump economy where your paycheck was growing?
Congressman Rutherford, I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome back anytime.